what we're doing today. So Genesis 30, starting in verse 25.
Genesis 30, verse 25. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way so that I can return to my homeland. Give me my wives and my children that I have worked for, and let me go. You know how hard I have worked for you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor with you, stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." Then Laban said, "Name your wages, and I will pay them." So Jacob said to him, "You know how I have served you and how your herds have fared with me, for you have had very little before I came, but now your wealth has increased. The Lord has blessed you because of me. And now, when will I also do something for my own family?" Laban asked, "What should I give you?" And Jacob said, "You don't need to give me anything. If you do this one thing for me, I will continue to shepherd and keep your flock. Let me go through your sheep today and remove every sheep that is speckled or spotted, every dark-colored sheep among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the female goats. Such will be my wages. In the future, when you come to check on my wages, my honesty will testify for me. If I have any female goats that are not speckled or spotted, or any lambs that are not black, they will be considered stolen." "Good," said Laban, "let it be as you have said." That day Laban removed the streaked and spotted male goats, and all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one that had any white on it, and every dark-colored one among the lambs. And he placed his sons in charge of them. He put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob. Jacob, meanwhile, was shepherding the rest of Laban's flock. Jacob then took branches of fresh poplar, almond, and plane wood, and peeled the bark, exposing white stripes on the branches. He set the peeled branches in the troughs in front of the sheep, in the water channels where the sheep came to drink, and the sheep bred when they came to drink. The flocks bred in front of the branches and bore streaked, speckled, and spotted young. Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face the streaked sheep and the completely dark sheep in Laban's flocks. Then he set his own stock apart and didn't put them with Laban's sheep. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob placed the branches in the troughs, in full view of the flocks, and they would breed in front of the branches. As for the weaklings of the flocks, he did not put out the branches. So it turned out that the weak sheep belonged to Laban, and the stronger ones to Jacob. And the man became very rich. He had many flocks, female and male slaves, and camels and donkeys. Now Laban heard what Laban's sons were saying. "Jacob has taken all that was our father's and has built this wealth from what belonged to our father." And Jacob saw from Laban's face that his attitude toward him was not the same as before. The Lord said to him, "Go back to the land of your ancestors and to your family, and I will be with you." Jacob had Rachel and Leah called to the field where his flocks were. He said to them, "I can see from your father's face that his attitude toward me is not the same as before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that with all my strength I have served your father, and that he has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God has not let him harm me. If he said, 'The spotted sheep will be your wages,' then all the sheep were born spotted. If he said, 'The streaked sheep will be your wages,' then all the sheep were born streaked. God has taken away your father's herds and given them to me. When the flocks were breeding, I saw in a dream that the streaked, spotted, and speckled males were mating with the females. In that dream, the angel of God said to me, 'Jacob,' and I said, 'Here I am.' And he said, 'Look up and see. All the males that are mating with the flocks are streaked, spotted, and speckled, for I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you poured oil on the stone marker and made a solemn vow to me. Get up, leave this land, and return to your native land.' Then Rachel and Leah answered him, 'Do we have any portion or inheritance in our father's family? Are we not regarded by him as outsiders? For he has sold us and has certainly spent our purchase price. In fact, all the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. So do whatever God has said to you.' So Jacob got up and put his children and wives on the camels. He took all the livestock and the possessions that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, and he drove his herds to go to the land of Canaan, to his father Isaac. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household idols. And Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean, not telling him that he was fleeing. He fled with all his possessions, crossed the Euphrates, and headed for the hill country of Gilead. On the 3rd day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he took his relatives with him, pursued Jacob for 7 days, and overtook him in the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night. "Watch yourself," God warned him. "Don't say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." When Laban overtook Jacob, Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban and his relatives also pitched their tents in the hill country of Gilead. Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You have deceived me and taken my daughters away like prisoners of war. Why did you secretly flee from me, deceive me, and not tell me? I would have sent you away with joy and singing, with tambourines and lyres. But you didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters. You have acted foolishly. I could do you great harm. But last night the God of your father said to me, 'Watch yourself. Don't say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.' Now you have gone off because you long for your father's family. But why have you stolen my gods?" Jacob answered, "I was afraid, for I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. If you find your gods with anyone here, he will not live. Before our relatives, point out anything that is yours and take it." Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the idols. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, Leah's tent, and the tents of the 2 concubines, but he found nothing. When he had left Leah's tent, he went into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken Laban's household idols, put them in the saddlebag of the camel, and sat on them. Laban searched the whole tent, but found nothing. She said to her father, "Don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence. I am having my period." So Laban searched, but could not find the household idols. Then Jacob became incensed and brought charges against Laban. "What is my crime?" he said to Laban. "What is my sin that you have pursued me? You've searched all my possessions. Have you found anything of yours? Put it here before my relatives and yours, and let them decide between the 2 of us. I've been with you these 20 years. Your ewes and female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams from your flock. I did not bring you any of the flock torn by wild beasts. I myself bore the loss. You demanded payment from me for what was stolen by day or by night. There I was. The heat consumed me by day and the frost by night, and sleep fled from my eyes. For 20 years in your household I served you, 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks. You have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac had not been with me, certainly now you would have sent me off empty-handed. But God has seen my affliction and my hard work, and he issued his verdict last night." Then Laban answered Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, the children my children, and the flocks my flocks. Everything you see is mine. But what can I do today for these daughters of mine, or for the children they have borne? Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I. Let it be a witness between the 2 of us." So Jacob picked out a stone and set it up as a marker. Then Jacob said to his relatives, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a mound, then ate there by the mound. Laban named the mound Yegar Sadutha, but Jacob named it Galeed. Then Laban said, "This mound is a witness between you and me today." Therefore the place was called Galeed, and also Mizpah, for he said, "May the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters or take other wives, though no one is with us, understand that God will be a witness between you and me." Laban also said to Jacob, "Look at this mound and the marker I have set up between you and me. This mound is a witness, and the marker is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this mound to you, and you will not pass beyond this mound, and this marker to do me harm. The God of Abraham and the gods of Nahor, the gods of their father, will judge between us." And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and invited his relatives to eat a meal. So they ate a meal and spent the night on the mountain. Laban got up early in the morning, kissed his grandchildren and daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban left to return home. The word of the Lord.
All right. Fun text, huh? You know, I don't know if you know this, but one of the things that the reformers would do is it wasn't just the preaching of the word, but actually the reading of the word as well. So one of the reasons we read the word is because actually when you go to preach it, it's actually really great to just hear the whole thing, right? I'm not just grabbing one section and preaching on it. We're trying to cover the whole thing. But as we get going and the last part of this, it will probably be a little bit less of the reading of the full text because we'll be here. It could be the whole time, actually, really, some of them. So would you pray with me real quickly? Father, I just pray as we get into this text that you would reveal what we need, Lord. I mean, there's always so much, Lord, that we cannot, it's so rich. The Word of God is so rich that we could just coming back for the rest of our lives and still gleaning. But Lord, for us this morning, I pray that you'd give us what we need that we might be people that glorify you, that praise you because of who you are and what you have done. In Jesus' name, amen. When we're as modern people, we can look at these kinds of texts and go, there's so many strange things happening, right? I mean, did you guys catch those strange things that are happening in this text? It's easy for us to assume, man, they're pretty simple-minded. Because what we're doing is assuming something about the text that maybe we do or do not know. I think we often, too, like as modern people, we often rely on we have science now, and so we know how things work. Which is funny to me a little bit. Can I just pause for a second? It's funny to me a little bit. When I studied history in college, one of the things that I have found super interesting is the way that the ancients were actually pretty brilliant in so many ways. Because the fact that we now can't figure out how pyramids are even built still. How did they even do that? It doesn't mean that they're dumb. It means, in fact, in many ways, they understand more about their world than we do. We just have these little things in our pockets that give us information that they didn't have access to it. And think about it. We've had thousands of years of written, documentation, which is actually great. I'm not poo-pooing that at all. Actually, it's one of the wonderful things that actually points to Christianity being a historically accurate belief. By the way, it is the historical accurate belief. So as we approach this text this morning, I just ask that we might pause on some of our assumptions. You're like, there's peeled sticks and put them in front of... Okay, just pause on some of your assumptions here. And let's be good question askers. Because often the questions that we rise up, what's going on with the sticks, and that's not actually the main point, right? So what we want to be asking is, what is the author trying to address, right? What's the author trying to get to? And I'm going to do a quick summary. Last week, because it helps us to understand a little bit about what's going on here. Last week, we actually saw that Jacob, if you remember, he was the son of Isaac, and he had a brother named Esau. And Esau and Jacob had a falling out, if you will. What you actually had is Jacob tricking Esau for the birthright. And he's basically fleeing and going to look for a wife in his mother's, and frankly, his father's original homeland, Abraham's homeland in Mesopotamia. And what we had seen is that Jacob had a life pattern of tricking. He's a trickster. This is what he does. But as he gets in there, he actually has tricked himself. He's tricked first. He's in love with his cousin. It's not weird at this time. He's really normal. But he's in love with his cousin, and he wants to marry her. But her dad, his uncle, tricks him into marrying as I believe the text is calling it, the ugly sister. And so then he works 7 years for her, and then he works another 7 years again for the next sister. So he marries 2 sisters. And then we saw that Leah, the older one, the one that was not desired by Jacob, who strived to get his approval and yet could never get it. And then she has 4 sons. Now, the text that I kind of skipped over us reading, just because it's long, it's really about the birth of the rest of the sons and a daughter. It really what happens is in the story is Rachel is jealous, and so then she goes, here's my slave, sleep with her and have children for my sake. And then Leah's like, I can do that too. And so it just goes back and forth until we get to the point where God actually opens the womb of Rachel and she bears a son. His name is Joseph. And so there is a rivalry that you'll see later on in the text between this Joseph, the oldest of one, and then the sons of Leah. But as we approach this text this morning, as we look at this, we know that there's a tension between the sisters. We know that there's now the son that's been brought in here. And I hope to point out things later on as we keep going in the text that are interesting in the future that you'll see that we can look back. But here's the thing, that Jacob has now worked 14 plus-ish years for his father-in-law for the hand of marriage of these 2 sisters. Yeah, you thought your wedding was expensive. But here's the thing. He now is broke. He doesn't own anything. And he now he's ready to go back to the promised land. Remember, he's the son of the promise. God says, like Abraham, he's calling him. We actually saw it in the text. God's calling him back into the land, but he's got nothing. And he actually doesn't come to his father-in-law / uncle, who, by the way, when he got there, we find out that he wasn't rich. Laban wasn't rich, and now he's very rich. Why is he very rich? It's because of Jacob. It's because of the blessing of God that was back with Abraham. He says, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. So what has happened is Laban now is loaded. But he's loaded not because of anything he's done, but recognizes that it's actually Jacob. You see that in the text, right? That he says, it's actually because of you and your God that I'm actually now wealthy. And so what we see here is that Jacob comes to him and says, I want to go. And Laban's like, ugh. Just think about this. A little bit of the character of Laban. We're going to see a lot of it today. He's greedy. He wants more and more and more. And so Laban goes, just think about this. The guy that came, worked hard, 14 years, and now I'm loaded. If he leaves, what's going to happen? So he devises a plan. He says, oh, I'll pay you. Now I want you to see something here. Let's look at verse 27. But Laban said to him, if I have found favor with you, stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Then Laban said, name your wage and I will pay them. So Jacob said to him, you know how I have served you and how your herds have fared with me. For you had very little before I came, but now you are wealthy. Your wealth has increased, and the Lord has blessed you because of me. And now, when will I also do something for my own family? Laban asked, what should I give you? Laban is not a believer in Yahweh, the God of the Bible. That's the first thing we have to understand. He believes in pagan gods. He's got multiple gods. We'll see that later too. We don't exactly know what this divination is because part of the text is pointing out that his gods don't have any power. We'll get to that later. But maybe it is that God revealed it to him in some way. I don't know. Or maybe it is just blatant observation. Sometimes I wonder about some of these things. Like, is it just observation? 14 years, you got rich when he came, and you weren't rich before? Seems like something pretty obvious is here. But regardless, he doesn't recognize it as necessarily just Jacob, but rather the God of Jacob. This is important. This story is over and over again. Everyone is recognizing who actually did the work. And it's not people, it's God. And again, comes back to that fulfillment of the promise that I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you. Let's look at verse 31. Laban asked, what should I give you? And Jacob said, you don't need to give me anything. If you do this one thing for me, I will continue to shepherd and keep your flock. Let me go through all your sheep today and remove every sheep that is speckled and spotted, every dark-colored sheep among the lambs, and the spotted and the speckled among the female goats. Such will be my wage. In the future, when you come to check on my wage, my honesty will testify for me. If I have any female goats who are not speckled or spotted, or lambs that are not black, you consider them stolen. What's happening here? Jacob refuses payment. You're like, well, it's kind of a payment. It's different, right? Okay, we'll get to that a little bit. But what he's saying is like, no, I'm not going to take a wage. I'm not going to take something from you. And part of the reason of this is the same reason that we saw in Abraham. When Abraham had gone in and he had cleaned house, if you will, and Sodom, the king of Sodom comes to Abraham and he's like, hey, so I'll give you some coin. And Abraham's like, no, you're not. Why? It's because it's a connection like you owe me. It's a payment. And so Jacob, just like Abraham, sees this person for who they are, and he's like, I don't want to actually have anything to do with you. You actually are evil. He's been with him 14 years. He knows the guy by now, right? He's not up to being honest and truthful. He's not trustworthy. So Jacob here has a plan. He says, let me raise the abnormally colored sheep and goats. Now, for us, I've never had sheep. Anybody had sheep ever? Goats? No? Okay, so we are on the outside of this. What's happening here? Here's the thing. Laban would have smiled at this. He would have been, yeah, he's so dumb. Because at this time, we actually know this from like how I didn't do this research because I don't know anything about genetics and all that kind of thing. It was really rare to have a spotted sheep or streaked. So this is a very low percentage of the flock. Like, ridiculous, right? So Laban's going, oh man, this is great. He's going to be here forever. And so they agree to this deal. The thing is that Laban is a jerk. What does Laban do? Do you see what the text said? He has his sons go out and grab all the spotted sheep and goats. And he sends them off miles away. I think it says 3 days, right? Why? Because Jacob hasn't yet gone through the flock. So he's coming in and he's like, oh no, where are all the spots, right? Like, what's going on here? Again, this is to make us like, is the plan of God foiled? Is God actually going to do what he said? Is there going to be an abundance? Is he going to prosper him? It seems like all hope is lost. So Jacob takes branches and he peels them and he puts them in front of the healthy lambs, or I guess they're not lambs, the sheep and goats while they're breeding. And he becomes rich. And you're like, what's with the sticks? I know what you're thinking because that was my thoughts too. Is this some kind of voodoo thing? Opal, you can press that slide, the sticks one. Or not, it's okay. See, here's the thing. It was believed at the time that whatever a ewe was looking at had the potential for conception. Right? So because it's seeing something spotted. And for us in our modern life and thing, we can kind of go, well, that's really dumb. I mean, that doesn't do anything. And potentially that would be true, right? Like we don't actually think that happens. Here's the thing. I think they actually are more observant of how things work than we are because they actually are out with their sheep. I'm not saying that sticks work. What I am going to say, though, is that if we keep reading on, we actually see that God told him about this. So what is exactly he doing here? I don't exactly know, but I know this, that I have read articles on essential oils. My house uses essential oils. We are like crunchy. We're crunchy in our house, you know? And I've read things that are like, it doesn't do anything. Yeah. Or there's not enough peer review. Okay. Could be. I also know that drinking a bunch of bleach isn't good for you. Right? So what's happening here? Am I just superstitious? You might say yes. Oh, you might just be. But let me ask you another question. You go to school. You get a degree. You work hard. You land a good paying job. Where did that come from? Is that you? You're like, well, yeah, I did those things. Okay, good job. Who gave you the air to breathe? Who provided you with the finances to go to school? What social structures were there? Who actually is behind it? That's kind of the question I want to ask. Is that we often think, well, you know, is he just doing some weird thing here? I think what he's doing is like, maybe he's like, oh, this is how we do it, but I'm actually trusting God. Notice later in the text, he doesn't say, because I laid down the sticks, then I had a bunch of spotted sheep. He doesn't even bring it up again. What does he say? He says, God has given me these things. So we often, even in our own culture, with our technology and things like that, we often don't recognize that God is the one that gives it. He's the giver of all things. That he gives us the ability, the breath, the life. I want you to skip down to verse 10 of chapter 31. When the flocks were breeding, I saw in a dream. This is him talking to his wives, by the way. He's talking to his wives. He says, when the flocks were breeding, I saw in a dream that the streaked and spotted and speckled males were mating with the females. In the dream, the angel of God said to me, Jacob. And I said, here am I. Here I am. And he said, look up and see. All the males that are mating with the flocks are streaked, speckled, and spotted. For I have seen all that Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, who poured out oil on the stone marker and made a solemn vow to you. Get up, leave this land, and return to the land. Where did he get this idea? The whole point here is that God gave him the idea, right? It's God that's going to do it. God's like, this is what I want you to go do. The sticks don't have anything to do with anything, really. He knows that. It was God that told him to do it. It's like saying, I'll be honest, in some ways it's like us being like, well, if you eat a lot of vitamin C, then you're probably more fertile. I think it's that kind of an idea. He believes that God is actually going to do it. Now, there's two problems. God has called him to go from the land. He's now rich, but here's the problem. There's two problems that you probably won't pick up from the text. And it's actually in old Mesopotamian laws that I actually had to go look up, because it's like, why is Laban running after? What's happening here? And here's part of it. One is that in Mesopotamia, legally, women had to agree to go with a husband if he's going to leave the family. See, that was not an assumed thing that you would leave. It was actually an assumed thing that you would stay. So they actually had a rights to say, yes, I will go, or no. That's why you see him going to his wives and saying, here's the problem. It's a legal transaction that's happening. Look at his wives' response. Verse 14. Then Rachel and Leah answered him, do we have any portion or inheritance in our father's family? Are we not regarded by him as outsiders? For he has sold us and has certainly spent our purchase price. In fact, all the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. So do whatever God has said to you. What's happening here? Rachel and Leah, I almost said Levi. Rachel and Leah know what their dad is like. Did you see what he said? They said that he sold us. They're complaining that they have no benefit in their dad. Whew. Be careful, dads. See, they had a bride price. Each of them had 7 years, right, that they were to have this bride price. So 14 years total, but Laban has spent it. Now here's the problem. Laban actually wasn't really supposed to spend it. You see, it's not a dowry, but here what you do have is you actually have something that they considered a security for those women. Because inheritances were passed down through the sons, right? So what if Jacob dies? Now what? What do they get? They're supposed to get some of that 14 years of work. It's like an inheritance in a sense. But what Laban has done, he said, no, it's mine. I'm just going to take it and spend it. And so they're not just seeing it as like he cheated us. He doesn't even care about us or our kids. Like, just think about this. What kind of dad is this? He squandered it all? And so they're angry. There's just something else that's happening here, too. That Laban has been cheating them all. But when he hears about what's happening, it's not just easy for Jacob to go. That's why he left without Laban knowing. 3 days later, Laban finds out, and he gathers himself basically an army, and he chases after him. And they catch him. It's about 10 days between the period here. Now, I want you to see something here. All of this is actually military language. We don't pick up on it because we don't read Hebrew. But you have to trust me. For example, here, verse 25, he says, when Laban overtook, you could, first of all, overtaking somebody. That's not like, hey, guys, right? It says Jacob had pitched his tents in the hill country, and Laban, his relatives, pitched their tents in the hill country of Gilead. So not only does he take them over, even this word for pitching tents is not the normal word in Hebrew for pitching a tent. It's not like, hey, just go pitch your tent. It actually means to strike or to smite. So he's coming and he's pitching a tent to smite him. He threatens him. Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? You've deceived me. And you've taken my daughters away like prisoners of war. Did he take them as prisoners of war? No. That's what he's crying out. He's like, that's how he can rally all of his relatives. Laban's like, hey, you took them without their will. No, he actually did the legal thing. Verse 27, why did you secretly flee from me, deceive me, and not tell me? I would have sent you away with joy and singing and tambourines and lyres, you liar. But you didn't. Didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren, my daughters. You've acted foolish. I could do you great harm. Good father-in-law, huh? Laban's coming out to fight. That's the whole idea here. These are all gloves off. He's painting a picture of how good he is. Look what kind of guy I am. Coming after to save my family. You didn't even let me kiss them goodbye. Not that they wanted to get kissed by you. Why is he doing this? He's a trickster. He's putting on a show. Check out verse 29. I could have given you great harm, but last night, God of your fathers, whose fathers? Your fathers, Jacob, not my fathers, said to me, watch yourself. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Don't you even say anything. Good or bad. See, here's the reality is Laban wanted to attack. Attacking is good for him. It means he gets more wealth. Right? It means, but here's the reality. He actually knows that this God is powerful. And then we see the real Laban popping out in verse 30. Now you have gone off because you long for your father's family. But why did you steal my gods? Here we have it. Laban is looking for stolen idols. The text actually tells us that Jacob had no idea that Rachel had gone in, that's his daughter, Laban's daughter, had gone in and stolen the idols. I don't know if you can hit the slide there, Opal. Hey, there it is. So Jacob, without knowing that Rachel had stolen them, says, great, search the camp, man. I'm so sick of you. Search the camp. I haven't stolen anything. I've been upright. Do it. And if you find the person that stole it, you kill him. Verse 34, now Rachel had taken Laban's household idols and put them in the saddlebags of her camel and sat on them. Laban searched the whole tent, but found nothing. Verse 35, she said to her father, don't be angry, my lord. I can't stand up in your presence, for I am having my period. So Laban searched, but could not find the household. So after all the tents he had, household idols, after he had searched the whole thing, he walks into Rachel's tent, and he's searching, and she's like, I can't get up. And some of us are like, okay, that's weird. What are they thinking about here? Why is Rachel stealing idols? Right? Does this pop into your mind? Why is she stealing the idols? Why doesn't he say, get up? Right? Is she taking them so that she can, like, some of that dowry or some of that, like, money that she should have had from the birth, or not birth price, the bride price? Is that what she's doing? Is it that she wants to worship these things, these idols? Or is it to spite her dad? You jerk. I'm going to do something to hurt you. Is she lying? What's happening here? I don't fully know. The text doesn't really tell us, but I can tell you a few things that are interesting that I think add to this maybe a more complex picture than just what she's lying and things of that matter. We don't even know if she's actually on her period, okay? We don't know. I mean, I think most of us probably go, she's probably not, but she might be, right? Some of us are like, well, it doesn't even matter, right? No, it does, actually. There's some hints here. Ancient Mesopotamians, as well as Israel later, saw that a woman's period was not bad or evil. It wasn't a sin, right? That's like God designed it that way. This is not evil. It's not bad. But there was a time of what they would call unclean. It's a ceremonial uncleanliness. It's not like they're actually unclean. It's like the only thing that I can think of, and every time I bring it up, somebody wants to talk about COVID again. But when you were in COVID, you were supposed to do this time after you had COVID to be distanced from people. You didn't do anything wrong, although some people may have thought you did. You didn't do anything wrong. That's a space that we would say that you were unclean, right? Not like you're evil or anything. Just that's kind of the idea here, right? So we just think of it as pathogens. They actually saw like this as a ceremonial thing because life was in the blood. That's part of it. Life actually comes from the blood. And so when there's a discharge of blood in any way, this goes for animals, like a guy has to touch like blood, now he's unclean. That there's something sacred about blood. And so Laban, because if she is on her period and is unclean ceremonially, he doesn't even think in his mind like, well, if she's there is no way she would sit on my gods. Right? No, how could she even, did she not know the wrath of my gods? You see what's happening here? Laban doesn't even think to check. And actually, this is Josh's, so this is not, I think this is she's intentionally defiling the gods. These gods had done nothing for Laban before. He was still poor Laban. Where did Laban recognize that all good things came from? It was God and because of Jacob. And so what we have here, I think, is a little bit of a mockery of the idols. Here's the thing. God can't be taken. True God, Yahweh, cannot be taken. These can. How great are your gods? I can put them in a camel bag, and I'm going to sit on them. It's pretty low. It's an insult. See, here's the reality, is that Laban has a view of God that actually I think that we often struggle with too. He thinks God, it's not that he doesn't believe there is a God, but what the value of the God is what he can get from the God. Does that make sense? I always love how this works when whatever I'm doing, like I've got podcasts and stuff I listen to that are unrelated to the sermon. I purposely do that because sometimes I can just get tunnel vision on it and I just want other things. But I was actually listening to a Christian Dutch thinker. You're like, great, that's awesome, Josh. Yeah, it's weird, I know. But he said something really profound. He says, our God is not ours. We can be his, but he is not ours. In other words, he says, he's not something you can carry around in your pocket. Where Laban's gods were things you could carry around in your pocket. We can belong to God, but he does not belong to us. You realize that later in Israel's life, they started to believe that God belonged to them. One of the major falls of Israel. Do you remember when Joshua is about ready to go into the promised land? And he meets the angel of the Lord, and what does he say to him? He says, whose side are you on? Theirs or ours? And what does the angel of the Lord say? Neither. The real question is, whose side are you on? And I think that's true for us today. I think that we have a tendency to want to protect and defend our God in our country right now. I want to protect and defend my God. He does not need your protection. He does not belong to you. He's not like your kid that's being bullied at school. Right? Rather, he's the one that protects you. He's the one that builds you up. And I think when we do that, what we actually are doing is lessening the power of God. We're saying our God is so small. He actually needs me. He does not need you. He didn't need Jacob to figure out a new strategy. He didn't need Laban to be like, well, I'll be gracious and give him more than the speckled. No. God knows what he's doing. He's the one in control. And we can go through life and ask questions like, my life is hard. Yeah, I hear you. Mine too. Is God still listening? I just want you to pause here for a second. Our homeboy here, Jacob, 14 years of work to a guy that is still trying to cheat him. Then he keeps working. It's about 20-some years by the time he's done. And the guy's still trying to rob him. So we see him at the end there, he loses it on him. Right? Was God faithful? At year 15, was God faithful? At year 7, was God faithful? At year 8, was God faithful? What do you think Jacob would have said? Would he said, maybe God isn't there? Maybe God isn't in control? Later we're going to have Joseph. It's a similar story, right? He's in Egypt. Like, is God faithful? Our ways are not his ways. It's not the way that we think things ought to go. Here's the reality, friends. The God of the Bible is all-knowing. He's all-power. He's all-present. He's eternal. He's all-seeing. He's all-hearing. He's a creator. He's a redeemer. He's a friend to the humble. He's the King of kings, the Lord of lords, and the beginning and the end. Who was and is to come, and that means that he is and will be always consistent and caring. He will do what he said he started out to do. We don't need sticks that are peeled. We don't need anything that God is relentlessly faithful. If you could hear nothing else today, hear me say that. I'm not going to be faithful. You're not going to be faithful. Here's the thing. He will always be faithful. He always was faithful, and he will continue to be faithful. In the darkest of your times, know this one thing, friends. He is always faithful. Always. Richard Warrenbrett, when he was in the Russian prisons for like 7 years, he had memorized massive parts of Scripture. But through the torture, he got to the point where he could only remember one line, "Our Father. Our Father." They had tortured him to the point where he could only remember the one thing. But he knew one thing, that God was his Father. That it was a consistent Father that had not left him nor forsaken him, but had him still holding on tight, even though Richard was going through the worst. It's a mind-blowing reality that God, regardless of our circumstances, whatever we think, he is faithful to the end. And that, for you and me, is the best of news in a broken, jacked up world. We see it in Jesus that God had not forgotten us. You realize the Old Testament closes and it's like, okay, now what? 400 years of silence. Was God still going to be faithful? The things that he promised? Yes, he sent his Son, who paid the bride price, by the way. You realize that? That's what he did. The church is called the bride of Christ. If you're a believer, you're a part of the church. If you're not a part of a local church, by the way, you're also called to do that. You're not called to just be like, oh, the mountains are my church. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Tell me where you get that in the Bible. You don't. But the bride price, he paid the bride price. What was that? It was death. To bring us into a rich inheritance. He's not like Laban. He brought us into a rich inheritance. You realize that? Like an eternal inheritance. That those who confess with their mouth, Jesus is Lord, and believe, not just believe here, but it affects how we even live, how we do, what do we think about, how we act. That's belief, by the way. Belief isn't just like, I believe, and then you go do something else. You didn't believe it, right? It's just not belief. But those who call as children to their Father, I can't do it. I need you. He's very sympathetic. He's a good dad. I don't know what you're going through right now. But this time of year, I just hear one thing after another. Everybody's going through something. It's hard. I get it. And some of you are going through worse things than I could probably even imagine. But know this, he is faithful. And I want you to see something else. This is the first time in Genesis where Jacob isn't painted a picture as a jerk. Because something has happened in Jacob. He's been transformed. He's now the honorable one. The trickster has become the honorable one. He didn't hide. He didn't steal anything. What did he do? He believed God, and now, as with his grandfather Abraham, it's counted to him as righteousness. He's in right relationship to God. And friends, that's what we need. If we believe and we trust, then we too can be in right relationship to God. This morning, I have kind of a weird application. How do we apply this? This is always kind of one of the harder things to come up with, by the way, if you're ever preaching a sermon. It's because sometimes it's so hard to like tangibly like, okay, so now how do we apply this? Well, because I'm full of room of people that are all going through different things at the same time, right? So how do you apply this? And there's a song that I'm going to have the guys come up, and I don't know if you're coming up too. What I want us to do is, my application is actually just for us to sing the song. And the song is actually based on Matthew 7, where Jesus is talking about where to build your house. He says, those who build their house on me and my word is like those who build their house on a rock. I don't know if you've ever built in Alaska. The ground moves all the time. It's terrible. But if you can find rock bed, it doesn't move, it doesn't shift. And those storms come and storms go, it remains the same. It's not like my chicken coop. It's all over the place because I just built it on top of the ground that was not safe. What have you built your life on? You may be going through storms. If you have built your life on Christ and His Word, then I can tell you, He is faithful. You are not going to be rocked. You might feel rocked. We were in Oregon when Opal was really little, 3 years old. And they had a storm come through, and you could see the walls move from the wind. And we're on the Oregon coast. And it felt like everything was going to be shaken. But it was built on a rock, literally. And I can testify that that house didn't go anywhere. We didn't go anywhere. Literally, because it was blowing crazy. Your life, if it's built upon the solid rock of Jesus Christ, friends, it's a firm foundation. Everything else is sinking sand. Let's sing.